I stood transfixed in the middle of the sun-drenched high school gymnasium, staring at an old, faded photograph pinned to the alumni memory board, a photograph of a smiling girl with radiant hazel eyes holding a trophy, standing next to a teenage boy whose face had been spitefully scratched out with a black permanent marker years ago, a boy who had been none other than me. That scratched-out face was a stark, brutal reminder of the day my dignity had been completely demolished in these very halls, 20 years prior, when a cruel rumor ruined my reputation and turned me into the school's ultimate outcast overnight. If you believe in the quiet power of kindness, the healing grace of forgiveness, and the incredible warmth of second chances, please take a moment right now to like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share this story with someone who might need a little inspiration today, and subscribe to our channel to join our growing family. The bright mid-morning sunlight streamed through the tall upper windows of the gymnasium, casting long, warm geometric shapes across the polished wooden floor where I used to hide during lunch breaks. I had almost skipped this 20-year reunion entirely, convinced that returning to the site of my greatest humiliation would only reopen old wounds that had taken 2 decades to scar over. Back in our senior year, I was Julian Vance, a quiet, introverted boy from a struggling family who survived on scholarships and part-time jobs, while my classmates belonged to the town's wealthiest inner circles. Despite our vastly different worlds, I had spent 3 years hopelessly in love with Clara Sterling, the bright, compassionate track star who always sat next to me in chemistry class and treated me like I actually mattered. We had built a silent, beautiful camaraderie over shared lab notes and quiet afternoon study sessions in the library, culminating in a brave moment on a sunny Friday afternoon when I finally gathered the courage to ask her out on a proper date, and to my absolute astonishment, she had smiled and said yes. However, that dream crumbled into a nightmare less than 24 hours later, when a jealous classmate named Marcus Vance, no relation to me, but the charismatic mayor's son who believed Clara belonged to him, orchestrated a malicious lie that framed me for stealing the school's athletic fundraising money. Before I could even defend myself, Marcus had spread the falsehood across the entire senior class, turning my quiet existence into a public trial where everyone readily believed the poor kid was a thief. Overwhelmed by shame and the sudden, chilling hostility of my peers, I broke down, skipped the date we had planned for that weekend, and withdrew into complete isolation, refusing to look Clara in the eye again because I assumed she, too, believed the dreadful lie. I spent the remainder of my senior year walking with my head down, enduring whispers and cold stares, until the day I graduated and left our small coastal town behind forever without ever explaining my side of the story to the girl who had held my heart. Now, standing in the bright sunlight of a warm Saturday afternoon among dozens of familiar faces aged by time, I felt like that vulnerable, heartbroken teenager all over again. The gym was filled with the gentle hum of laughter, the clanking of iced beverage glasses, and the bright, cheerful decorations of our school colors, yet I felt entirely invisible, lingering near the display cases filled with forgotten trophies and old yearbooks. I watched from afar as Marcus, now a prosperous regional developer dressed in a tailored linen suit, stood near the center of the room surrounded by an admiring crowd, still carrying the same smug, effortless arrogance that had once ruined my youth. I took a slow breath, adjusting my modest blazer, telling myself that I had only come to prove to my own soul that the past no longer held any power over me, yet the heavy ache in my chest betrayed the truth that some wounds simply hide beneath the surface until you step back into the room where they were inflicted. Lost in the quiet gravity of my memories, I stepped away from the main gathering and walked down the quiet, sunlit hallway toward the old science wing, where the large bay windows overlooked the green courtyard. The afternoon sun was warm against my skin, filling the empty corridor with a tranquil, nostalgic golden glow that felt almost surreal compared to the noise of the reunion. I stopped near our old chemistry classroom, placing my hand against the cool glass of the door, remembering the sound of Clara's gentle laugh and the way the sunlight used to catch the soft golden tones in her brown hair during fifth period. I closed my eyes, letting out a long, heavy sigh of lingering regret, realizing that despite all my professional success as an architect over the past 20 years, a part of me had remained frozen in this hallway, forever waiting for a redemption that would never arrive. Suddenly, the soft sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the polished floor, stopping just a few feet behind me in the silent, sun-filled corridor. I turned around slowly, expecting to see a curious janitor or a lost alumnus, but my breath caught in my throat as my eyes locked onto the woman standing before me in a simple, elegant emerald dress. It was Clara, grown into a breathtakingly poised woman, her hazel eyes holding the exact same warmth, intelligence, and gentle grace that had consumed my thoughts for 2 decades. She stood there silently in the bright daytime light, studying my face with a mixture of disbelief, tenderness, and a faint, nervous smile that made my heart race as if no time had passed at all. Before I could find the words to speak or apologize for running away all those years ago, she closed the small distance between us, tilted her head slightly, and whispered with a soft, affectionate smirk that I still owed her that date. My heart hammered against my ribs as a flood of raw emotion washed over me, rendering me entirely speechless as Clara reached out and gently placed her hand on my forearm, her touch warm and reassuringly real. She explained softly that she had spent 20 years hoping to run into me again, not to demand explanations, but because she had never believed the terrible lie Marcus had spread about me all those years ago. She revealed that on the very day the rumor broke, she had confronted Marcus in front of the entire student council, demanding proof, but when I vanished and cut off all contact out of sheer embarrassment, she was left heartbroken, not because of the silly money rumor, but because I had locked her out of my life without giving her a chance to stand by my side. Hearing her words felt like a sudden, blinding light breaking through a dark cloud that had hovered over my soul for half my life, revealing that the prison I had lived in was built entirely out of my own fear and assumed rejection. As we stood together in the sunlit hallway, the heavy weight of 20 years of silence seemed to dissolve into the warm afternoon air, replaced by a deep, quiet understanding that needed no elaborate pretenses. Clara shared how she had pursued a career in pediatric nursing, dedicated her life to helping vulnerable families, and had recently returned to our hometown after years away, feeling a strange tug in her heart that urged her to attend this reunion on the off chance that I might finally show up. I told her about my own journey, about how the pain of being falsely accused had driven me to build a life centered on integrity, design, and creating spaces where people could feel safe and valued, though I confessed that I had never managed to open my heart fully to anyone else because the memory of what I lost with her had left an irreplaceable void. Our quiet conversation was interrupted by the loud, booming voice of Marcus, who came walking down the corridor holding a champagne glass, his face slightly flushed from the afternoon festivities as he searched for Clara. When his eyes landed on me standing intimately beside her, his cheerful expression faltered for a second before morphing into that familiar, condescending smirk from our youth. He strolled up to us with an exaggerated air of confidence, loudly remarking on how surprising it was to see the school's most infamous former student slinking around the back hallways, making a passive-aggressive jab about whether the school's valuable property was safe with me standing so close to the old trophy displays. The disrespect was deliberate and sharp, intended to diminish me in front of Clara just as he had done 2 decades prior, but instead of shrinking back in shame as I would have done as a teenager, I stood tall, looking him directly in the eyes with a calm, unwavering dignity that completely threw him off balance. Before Marcus could continue his cruel taunts, Clara stepped forward, her voice ringing out with an unmistakable, quiet authority that echoed down the quiet hallway, informing Marcus that everyone in our class had eventually grown up and seen right through his childish insecurity and manipulate games. She plainly stated that the only reason he had destroyed my reputation back then was because he was terrified that a genuine, kind-hearted boy with nothing to his name was worth 10 times more than a privileged bully who had to tear others down to feel important. Marcus stared at her in stunned silence, his face turning bright red as he looked between the two of us, realizing that his old tricks held absolutely no power over people who had learned the true value of character and self-worth over time. Without another word, he turned on his heel and walked away down the sun-drenched corridor, his posture slumping slightly as the hollow illusion of his superiority shattered against the truth. Watching Marcus walk away, I felt an extraordinary sense of lightness wash over my chest, a profound release of a burden I didn't even realize I was still carrying with me every single day. I looked at Clara, my eyes welling with quiet tears of gratitude, realizing that the greatest victory of my life wasn't proving my innocence to a room full of strangers, but discovering that the one person who truly mattered had believed in my goodness all along. She reached up, gently wiping a stray tear from my cheek with her thumb, her own eyes glistening with warmth as she offered me a soft, beautiful smile that promised a future far brighter than our past. The afternoon sun reached its peak, bathing the hallway in a brilliant, luminous light that felt like a blessing, symbolizing the end of an old, painful chapter and the radiant beginning of a journey built on truth, courage, and unconditional trust. We decided to leave the reunion behind, opting to walk out of the school building together into the bright, breezy afternoon air, leaving the ghost of our teenage heartbreaks where they belonged, in the past. As we strolled side by side through the town park where the autumn leaves were just beginning to turn golden under the clear blue sky, we talked for hours, sharing our dreams, our failures, and the quiet lessons life had taught us during our time apart. There were no awkward silences, no need to pretend or guard our hearts. Every word spoken felt like a long-awaited piece of a puzzle falling effortlessly into place, proving that time and distance are completely powerless against a bond that is rooted in genuine affection and mutual respect. By late afternoon, as the sun began its slow, gentle descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of amber and rose, we stopped near a quiet wooden bench overlooking the calm waters of the local lake. I turned to Clara, taking her hands in mine, and told her that 20 years ago, I had let fear rob me of the chance to show her how much she meant to me, but that I would never make that mistake again. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the warm golden light of the fading day, and told me that the date I owed her didn't end with a single afternoon, but was simply the first step of a beautiful, lifelong story we were finally ready to write together. In that quiet, sacred moment under the open sky, I realized that true healing doesn't mean forgetting the pain of yesterday, but choosing to forgive, to trust, and to step boldly into the light of love when second chances present themselves. Before we conclude this emotional journey, I want to invite you to reflect on your own life and share your heart with our community. Have you ever carried the heavy weight of a past misunderstanding or lost touch with someone who truly mattered, only to realize that forgiveness and second chances were waiting for you all along? Please take a moment to leave a meaningful comment below sharing your thoughts, your personal stories of healing, or the lessons you've learned about letting go of old pain. If this story touched your heart, brought a tear to your eye, or reminded you of the beauty of hope, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey with our family.